99.3 Nigeria for a very lovely morning to you. It's time for us to get on with our conversation this morning. In case you are just joining us, you are welcome. I am Sheriff Quadry.
And I'm Wemimo Adewuni. Fantastic morning to you. Today we're considering the talk around the Operation Positive Identification put forward by the military, the Nigerian army. It was at first alleged, but now seems confirmed to be... So it will happen. I mean, it was even supposed to kick off last week. We're wondering if it has kicked off across the country. And
it started on Friday.
How far with it? So this is our conversation for the next 1 hour. Operation Positive Identification. What does this mean? What would it mean for you? How would it impact you? If you would like to join us, we're live on Facebook. We're also streaming on YouTube at Nigeria Info FM. Just do a quick search on Facebook and YouTube. You find us there. Click the play button and you are live with us. You can also leave us your comment on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM, and also WhatsApp number is 08095975805. This conversation is going on for the next 1 hour, and we expect to join us shortly Comrade Alex Omotaishe, who's the Lagos State Chairman, Committee for the Defense of Human Rights. Also, we have joining us via the phone Captain Aliyu Blade. Good morning, sir. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. How are you today?
Very well, thank you. He retired from the Nigerian Army. Rotimi Sankore is also here with us in the studio. Rotimi, morning again.
Morning.
And you are here. We also expect shortly, like we told you, Comrade Alex Omotaishe. We attempted reaching out to the military. We particularly have been speaking with the Army spokesman, Colonel Musa Sagir, but he has said, there's a press release by the Army, and he would rather not speak on live radio on this one. So we would have to work with the press release by the Nigerian Army to make an attempt to understand what Operation Positive Identification is. Now, it's been going on back and forth. Is this going to happen? Wouldn't it? Would it? Wouldn't it? Well, early last week, there were reports across the country, across the papers, that Operation Positive Identification would commence on Friday, November 1st, that's last week, and run till Monday, December 23rd. That's for about 7 weeks and 3 days. The Nigerian Army, in response to the allegation, there was something going viral then, released a statement over the weekend on Saturday, 2nd November, saying that it is a fabrication emanating from BRICS company. Okay, there's a statement reported by the Nation newspaper. Specifically, I quote, BRICS alleges that residents shall witness large numbers of uniformed Nigerian Army personnel parading the roads as an exercise known as OPI. The acting director, Nigerian Army Public Relations, Colonel Sagir Musa, in a statement, said BRICS company does not have anything to do with the Army. Colonel Musa also said the purported Nigerian Army Operation Positive, which was, I quote, mischievously peddled on social media, is not an army operation, and the Nigerian Army does not create any operation with such name or abbreviation in all its operations across the country in a manner maliciously presented by the so-called BRICS company. The statement also continues to say, and I quote, in order to complement the ongoing operation in the Northeast, Nigerian Army has an ongoing Operation Positive Identification, which is intelligence-driven, deliberate, targeted operation, and not an independent operation which is integral and complementary to Operation Lafia Dole in the Northeast, adding that the aim of the operation is, quote again, to arrest all those terrorists fleeing or escaping the war zone, theater of operation, to a safe haven or peaceful areas in Nigeria. So, the first part says it is not an army operation. The Nigerian Army does not create any such operation with such names or abbreviation. The other part of the statement says it is an ongoing operation, which is just like and complementary to Operation Lafia Dole in the Northeast. What truly would this mean? We hope to be able to understand this in the next hour.
Indeed. And if you are joining us, feel free to let's get a conversation on the road on our socials. Our Twitter handle is at Nigeria Info FM. Facebook and YouTube, Nigeria Info 99.3. We're streaming live on those platforms as we speak right now. So feel free to drop your comments. We'll be going in and out of our socials so we can have a very robust conversation this morning. Captain Ali, thank you again for joining us. Let me start with you. When you heard about this Operation Positive Identification, what came to your mind?
Operation Positive Identification which is meant or was meant to take care of some 170 million Nigerians and identifying them to or not to be terrorists came to my mind as a further dilution of the traditional role of the army. For crying out loud, there are other agencies that can handle positive identification of Nigerian citizens while allowing the army to handle its more pressing and demanding need of securing our territorial integrity from outside and inside aggression. So putting positive identification on the army's plate undermines, dilutes, and even takes away the reckoning the armed forces are meant to have. You see, familiarization breeds contempt. That armed forces you are seeing is our last card.
Right.
If we have external aggression, for example, our French neighbors decide to throw a party for us tomorrow, that's our last card. So we don't want them to Torokobo task.
When you say party, you mean that if there happens to be war?
That's the language, babe. That's the language.
I see. Party.
When they throw a party for us, we have to dance and make sure we dance well.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Now, we don't reduce our last card. If you play what, you'll understand what I'm saying. You don't use your last card at every turn and corner.
Right.
It undermines and takes away the reckoning they should have. They are not something you should see every day. Let's keep the enemies guessing at what we have and what they're capable of doing.
Interestingly, you retired from the Nigerian army, and what this looks like is a confusion within the Nigerian army, because just a day before this press release, the reps had been asking questions about this operation, positive identification, and the Nigeria's chief of army staff explained that the operation must go on, and said it was proposed by the Nigerian army and must commence despite public concerns. Again, he explained that it was targeted at fleeing Boko Haram members and other criminals. But the press release by the army, on one hand, says it did not emanate from them. It is not something that would be happening. On the other hand, says it is an existing program already ongoing within the Nigerian army. What do you think is happening behind the scenes here?
Whatever is happening is left to the chieftains. As a retired or as a civilian today, my interest is Nigeria.
Right.
And you see, that flag brand we call our armed forces cannot be reduced to menial jobs. Whatever drove, whatever reasons they are giving for positive identification. In fact, whom do they seek to identify? How do we know whom they're identifying? I would have preferred pictures of faces of fleeing men and telling me at every round and corner, if you see this man, call this number. Positive identification itself is not defined. What happens to the rural peasant who has never seen a car, has never driven one, has no driver's license, has never traveled outside his state, so forget international passport. National ID, he has none. Does that make him a terrorist? And if you met a citizen who had all of these documents, does that not make him a terrorist? Look, terrorism is not something that national identification or positive identification immunizes you from. Right. A terrorist could in fact, the terrorists are even the ones who take extra care to make sure they have all these documents.
Indeed.
Well, so I don't see where it is going, but that is not my concern. My concern is, let's be careful. The more we commonize these armed forces, we will pay it forward. We're paying all of it forward, because someday one threat is going to call the entire bluff of these armed forces based on what we are putting them through.
indeed. Rotimi, let me come to you, Rotimi. So the Nigerian army has said this operation, positive identification, is for them to stop fleeing terrorists. The terrorists are, according to the Nigerian army, leaving the war-torn areas due to bombardments and shellings from the Nigerian armed forces to peaceful areas of the country. My question is, if we're saying that this is not the right thing to do, what will be the right thing to do to fish out terrorists living peacefully among Nigerians?
Let me tell you something.
Hold on, Captain, for a moment. Just hold on for a moment. We have Rotimi in the studio here.
Well, let me first say that over the last few days, a former chief of army staff speaking at an old boys meeting of one of the prestigious secondary schools in the north, stated that unemployment is the biggest threat to Nigeria. I mean, I watched it twice on 2 different stations, and that meeting was made up of lots of ex-army generals and retired senior officers from the Air Force, the Navy, and many of them were clapping when he was saying it. So it's instructive that some of the older generation of generals are identifying unemployment as the biggest threat to the nation. The current leadership sees the situation more as a security situation. Now, having said that, I'm glad that Captain, who is an ex-army officer, has stated it that this is not the role of the army. In fact, I've been reading a lot of the expert commentary globally in the kind of magazines and publications that cover these kind of issues. And a lot of that commentary is underlined that any time that armies are rolled out on mass exercises that cover the entire civilian population, that something is amiss. In fact, 2 of those pieces in particular pointed out that historically in Nigeria and in other parts of Africa or the world, anytime the army has made an incursion into politics, the incursion was claimed to be an exercise.
Right.
Under cover of exercise. So, I mean, and these are experts that are writing about all this. So, I mean, there is a much bigger picture to this than whether it is even the role of the army to play this role. But even on that, it is also very important. The army essentially is an instrument of violence to defend the country from external aggression.
Right.
Individual soldiers are not trained to ask you politely for your
Right.
ID card, and if you can't produce it,
Have a chat with you about it.
So if this goes on, it's not going to end well at all.
How do we now fish out these escaped terrorists from the civilian
The
population?
captain has already explained that now, that this is the role of the proper security agencies, whether it is police or otherwise. Look, if you are carrying an ID card, it doesn't mean you are not a criminal. And if you are not carrying an ID card, it doesn't mean that you are a criminal. So what exactly is the point?
And a criminal would probably have thought forward. Since they're going to ask me for IDs, make all those IDs available.
Especially in a situation where it is clear that not all Nigerians have ID cards. So, it's counterproductive.
Right.
There is something called a logical fallacy. So 1 and 2 does not equal 3. So if 1 and 2 does not equal, 3, what exactly is the point of the exercise? I mean, that is what the real question should be. Like I said, people who know even better than me, in magazines and forums where these things are discussed, they are already hinting that there is something amiss. And by the way, remember that the army or a section of the army came out and described the initial announcement as fake news.
Right.
Only to another person to turn up in National Assembly to then explain it, that actually you are not going to see lots of roadblocks everywhere, but that what will happen is that when they see or think or identify that these escaped people are in a particular area, they will surround the entire area and, in quote, arrest everybody.
Right.
Arrest everybody and then interrogate them.
You sieve them out.
Yes, look, this is not going to end well at all. It's not going to end well. This is the work of the police. This is the work of civil defense or whoever. It is not the work of the army. Individual soldiers are not trained to ask people politely for ID card. And if you don't have it and you say you don't have it, what happens?
Right, that's a big question.
What happens? And if it is a group of young people, what happens? Never mind if it is an individual.
We have issues already with even the police and young people, like you've mentioned, in Lagos State. Across cities, you've had harassment of young persons. I mean, even if you have your ID, it's never enough.
Let's even leave the one of extortion apart, because inevitably it is going to happen. I mean, see what happened with the Wadume thing, where, units of the army and police were exchanging fire over custody of, So the question of corruption is going to come into it at some point, which, as the captain has said, is going to drag the armed forces into the mud. But that is aside. The two important things are, one, there will be human rights issues. And two, what happens when the army is extended into every aspect of civil life? How does the army withdraw from that? That is what the experts are talking about, the militarization of the society and the implications for democracy.
One of the things the army chief said was that the president was aware of this operation and it's being carried along. In the statement, I'm looking at the full statement now. The army specifically denounced the BRICS company. It was this BRICS company that had at first put forward a statement, kind of table-like information that there would be Operation Positive Identification. The information did not emanate from the Nigerian army.
So who are those people?
So who are they? So they are saying they do not pass press releases through any private or third party, and that they do not know that party. They don't know who they are. So this again tells me that there's a problem with information with our system. So the Nigerian army is planning something. A third party gets wind of it, shares it. It goes around for almost 2 weeks before the Nigerian army even responds to it.
It looks more like there is some kind of division, and like most things, the truth will step out on
with
its
time.
own. Can I just say that the president being aware of something does not make it right? I mean, we've seen globally, because sometimes it's important to step out of Nigeria so that supporters of one party or the other won't say,
it's a party thing.
You don't like this person, you don't like that person. Step out of Nigeria. We've seen in many countries where presidents and prime ministers are aware of things, and those things are so wrong that those presidents and prime ministers get into trouble for even knowing that those things were happening. So somebody in the army coming out say that the president is aware. The president is not the constitution.
But they did not go far in the House of Reps. It was the army chief was invited. He merely explained that it would go on no matter what. The reps could do nothing about it.
Well, so that then raises the issue, which the expert commentary has been going on now globally for the last week or so. If an army spokesperson can come out and say to the National Assembly that it doesn't matter what you say, we'll do what we want, is that a good sign for democracy? Is that overreach? Is the army declaring itself an independent entity or power? We've seen over the last few years senior army officers coming out to say that they acknowledge that the army should be subordinate to elected representatives. Some of them have said it to their credit. But if one or two or three have come out in the past week to say it doesn't matter what National Assembly says, they will go ahead with something which is not proper and which is not going to end well if they go about it the way they have described. I mean, it is inevitable that there will be human rights abuses.
Let me quickly speak with Captain Blade, who is on the line. So let's track back a little bit to what Wemimo mentioned earlier as to how the information got out, information management of the Nigerian army. We know how critical, how sensitive anything Nigerian army or any army whatsoever of any country, any information they've got hold of, how sensitive those information can be. Does it bother you that before the Nigerian army could even put out this information, a particularly faceless organization, BRICS company, had already put out such information?
Now, who said that?
What does that speak to you, Captain Blade?
Well, in our times, what is trendy today is social media. And just as I told you, anybody could be anyone. Within the Nigerian army itself or within the armed forces, you have soldiers. But then that a soldier is in the armed forces doesn't make him anything else. It's all up to us to put safety nets in place to ensure that the public doesn't get what it's not meant to have. Talking about communication, what we must pay attention to, particularly the armed forces, is what comes across to the public when the armed forces speaks. It's one thing to be on one side of the saying and to be on the other side of the hearing. What does the civil populace hear when the armed forces speaks? It's very key.
Right.
If the Chief of Army Staff has said the positive identification operation will still go on regardless. For me, what comes across is being a subordinate of civil authority, then there is indeed a civil authority that has given him the marching order to go ahead. If you look closely to our Constitution, what you will be seeing there is the armed forces is actually a baby of the Commander-in-Chief. That's why it says Commander-in-Chief and President of the Federal Republic. What that tells you is our President wears two caps. He's Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, and he's also the President of the Federal Nigeria. So if the Chief of Army Staff says he's going ahead, that means it's likely the President has endorsed it.
Right.
It is likely the President has endorsed it. Don't forget, the Chief of Army Staff is not an island to himself. Someone put him there.
You are now a civilian, a retired captain. You are now a civilian. What do you expect? For instance, I was pretty surprised that the reps could not do anything. There was a committee set up to look into this, and the army chief simply explained to them, told them in clear terms that they were going ahead with the operation. As a civilian, do you still expect more from the reps? What can we expect them to do at this point?
The Chief of Army Staff has said he's going ahead with it. And definitely has the endorsement of the President. The Chief of Army Staff cannot run rogue, if I could use the word, of his responsibilities.
Couldn't he then be checked by the legislature? I mean, he's working as part of the executive, we agree, but we have a system of checks and balances, which is where the legislatures come in to say, okay, what is happening here? Why is this happening? No, it shouldn't happen. Where does this draw the line? Or does this president's yes give a finality to the conversation?
The buck will rest on the president's table, if you ask me. Because today, if I was a soldier, and my commander-in-chief gave marching orders, then they are marching orders. But what I want to say specifically here is, whoever is giving that order is not doing our beloved armed forces a favor. You see, let's understand something. Our armed forces is sacred. When I say sacred, I mean sacred. I said it earlier that they are our last task. You see, if you look at it critically, you discover that just like my other speaker on the program there has said, the militarization of the civil, how did he put it now? But let me explain it to you. You see, when you overexpose your military to civilian roles or tasks, two things happen, both of which are inimical. One, you civilianize the armed forces. And two, you militarize the civil populace. But when militarizing the civil populace, you begin to see them become what I call resistance. I told you earlier that familiarity breeds contempt. Among the civil populace, everybody is amongst them. It's an opportunity for people to understudy, scrutinize, get close up to your armed forces. And you never know who these people are.
Right.
It also calls for what we call clash and conflicts of interest that could bring about contempt for your armed forces. Other than that, the military, as I told you, is sacred. A soldier is a soldier, and that is all.
And that's what it should be. Let me hold you a bit, Captain Blade, while we go on our first break. What retired Captain Blade has explained comes to my head as diffusion. I mean, then you make civilians out of the military and then you militarize the society, because, I mean, the soldiers are trying to adapt to civilians. Civilians are reacting, and that doesn't look like a good place we all want to be. Let's go on our first break. Retired Captain Aliyu, please hold the line. We'll be back shortly. We hope that when we get back, we'll be joined by our other guest who is still on his way. We are live on Facebook and YouTube, so you can watch us there and also leave us a comment. WhatsApp number is 08095975825. Operation Positive Identification. What do you think about it? It has started. I mean, the kickstart day was November 1st. So if you have experienced anything, you might also want to share your experiences with us. We'll be back in a moment. I'm Wemimo Adewuni.
And I'm Sharif Quadry.
More talk, news and sports after this.
on 99.3 Nigeria Info. From your number one talk news and sports station. This is the Morning Crossfire with Wemimo and Sheriff.
This is the Morning Crossfire. You're welcome back from that break. Operation Positive Identification of the Nigerian Army. How will this pan out? What does it mean? How would it affect you, if it would? We reached out to the Acting Director, Nigerian Army Public Relations, Colonel Sage Musa, who has advised that we simply stick to the press release by the Nigerian Army, as he would rather not speak on live radio on this matter. So we're looking at the press release from the Army and trying to understand exactly how this would play out. The Nigerian Army has denounced the BRICS company, the so-called BRICS company, that's what they wrote in their press release, which alleges that the Army would conduct the operation and that residents would witness large numbers of uniformed Nigerian Army personnel parading the roads as an exercise known as OPI. The statement also continued to say, I quote, the Nigerian Army wishes to inform members of the public that it has nothing to do with the so-called BRICS company and its illusionary OPI. It is not an army operation, and the Nigerian Army does not create an operation with such name or abbreviation in all its operations across the country in a manner maliciously presented by the so-called BRICS company. However, they have said that there is actually an operation Positive Identification in order to complement the ongoing operations in the Northeast, which is intelligence-driven, deliberate, targeted operation, and not an independent operation as reported by the BRICS company, but it is an integral and complementary program to the Operation Lafia Dole in the Northeast. And the aim is to arrest all those terrorists fleeing or escaping the war zone or theater of operation to a safe haven or peaceful areas in Nigeria. They also enjoined all Nigerians to cooperate with the Nigerian Army and indeed all other security agencies by giving credible information that will assist in the identification and eventual arrest of the fleeing criminals or terrorists in any part of our beloved country. Quote, 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 all from this press release. You're welcome back. We have retired Captain Aliyu Blade with us via the phone. Thanks for holding the line, sir. Captain Blade, are you there?
Yes, I am. Good.
All right, thanks for holding the line. Rotimi Sankore is here with the studio. We expect Comrade Alex Motainche to join us any moment from now. He's a Lagos State Chairman, Committee for the Defense of Human Rights. I'm Wemimo Adewuni. Welcome back.
And I'm Sheriff Quadry. It's good to know that you're there. Remember to always drop your comments on our portals as well, on our platforms. WhatsApp number is 0809 597 5805. Please drop your comment on our WhatsApp portal. We'll be taking your comments and questions in a moment. But if you're watching online at Cool FM, at Nigeria Info FM, feel free to drop your comment as well on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM. On YouTube and Facebook, it's Nigeria Info 99.3. Captain Blade, let me start with you. So, in explaining away the Operation Positive Identification, the Army said that majority of the operations will take place in the Northeast and Northwest, that it will not unnecessarily come to the South. Does that make it better? Hello, Captain Blade.
I'm with you. I want to put it to you another way. If the majority of this operation holds in the Northeast, what happens if the terror mastermind, who's also radio compliant, decides to move elsewhere? You see, what I'm trying to put to you is, if the Army or our armed forces is interested in ensuring terrorists who are on the run are apprehended and brought to book, there are ways it can be gone about silently, quietly. In fact, announcing this positive identification itself is what I want to call a loss of the initiative. You have already told these people that you are going to be on the lookout for them. Then somehow you've said you're going to concentrate on the Northeast. So what do you think they're going to do? They're going to do the exact opposite of what you're doing, so they cannot be caught. But let's leave that out of it. What I really want to emphasize here is positive identification for us is going to be cumbersome, because we know that if you were to do a vox of people who have the stipulated means of identification, you're not going to get any high numbers. What exactly we need to do here is we need to revamp our police force. We need to raise the bar on our police force. And we've had this opportunity for 11 years running now. We need to place our police force on the spot. What do I mean by place the police force on the spot? We need to equip them to a certain degree so that they will become relevant in a modern democracy,
Right.
the way we want them to be.
Right.
It's not modern to second the military to these roles, which compared to what they are called into being to do, I consider menial. Menial. And the reason, as I told you earlier, is simple. We are going to dilute the reckoning. We are going to erode the majesty, the myth behind our armed forces. It's called overexposure. We cannot afford to do that. And as it is now, if we needed, we wanted, we could have a National Guard. What we are struggling with are tasks and roles a National Guard could play. And we already have a National Guard in the wings. The civil defense and the Nigerian police mobile force can be brought together first and foremost to get us the manpower for a National Guard. The Army has a very good number of officers who were trained with me. We graduated on the same day as National Guard cadets, way back 93. National Guard was scrapped, and those officers are senior officers in the armed forces today. They could form the first set of chieftains for this combined force of civil defense and police mobile force that we could call our National Guard. So we could take our army back up to that pedestal where they should be. Right now, it's not looking good. I wonder what next army will be subject to after positive identification.
Colonel Adeyuble, you've made a fantastic contribution there. My head just went spinning. If I could practically put the bricks in place while you were talking. One of the things that, however, struck me, I mean, it looks like a movie playing in my head. You know, it appears to me that the military did not actually plan to tell Nigerians about this Operation Positive Identification. Like you said, if it's truly intelligence-driven, letting it off the hook or getting it out in the public space defeats the purpose. If there was a company or so-called company that then got wind of this and then put it in the public space, looks like there was a bit of a sabotage going on there. If they had planned to do this subtly throughout the country without anybody knowing what's going on. But that's just an aside, something I'm just throwing around in my head. But Rotimi, National Guard, how does that sound?
Commenting on the National Guard, let me just
1 minute, Captain. This is for Rotimi here in the studio.
Before commenting on National Guard, let me just quickly say that it's impossible to implement large movement of troops in secret. So there is no way this situation would not have turned out badly. Because if you start moving large numbers of troops across the country and nobody knows what is happening, people will start shouting, there is a coup in the offing. Because that's what happens when you see large movements of troops, just moving about in the night, in the daytime, and nobody knows what is happening. And in fact, that will tank the economy, it will cause unrest. Anything could happen. So there is no way it could have been done in secret.
Well, the army in this press release did neither denied nor agreed that there will be a large movement of uniformed men.
It's going to happen. It was happening. Well, they will dress them in pajamas.
Looks such a sight.
It's not going to be possible now. They will have to come out in uniform. And if you want to blanket the whole country in positive ID, then they have to come out in numbers. So there is no scenario in which it could have been done secretly. If they didn't announce or telegraph it, and they just started rolling out troops across the country, confusion and mayhem.
Right.
If they announce and telegraph it, then all these comments we are making now, the army is not trained to ask for ID. What happens if they stop you and you don't have ID? Will you be arrested? Where will you be held?
Right. Would you be handed over to the police? What would happen?
The process, never mind that it is not the army's role. The process is not even clear as to what is going to happen, which means, the chances to end well are very slim. And look, I can see a scenario in which many army officers will be shaking their heads and saying, now, wow, they say an ID card will they find about now. Because as Captain said, when you go to NDA, your aspiration
isn't to start checking IDs.
Will be checking ID card. Even non-commissioned officers will be wondering, which one now? If you send them to theater of war in Northeast, they understand.
Right.
But
that's what they've been trained to do.
And I can see clashes happening between. So if somebody calls police and say there's a group of men around here wearing army uniform and they are taking people away, what happens? The police turns up, and then what? They exchange what?
Or they back off.
Fire, or they say we are on positive ID. And then what happens when hoodlums wear uniform?
And kidnap people.
And then grab people. Then the police can't react. Look, the entire thing is untidy. But as for the National Guard idea, well, many countries have National Guard. And the National Guards are rolled out when there is civil unrest on a scale that the police or the anti-riot police especially cannot cope with, then the National Guard is rolled out. So it's not an entirely bad idea, but you see, there is something that we are missing in the whole of all this problem. The troubles that Nigeria is facing now, and that is likely to get worse, is arising because of underdevelopment. And I always say, no army has ever defeated poverty and underdevelopment anywhere in the world.
Nigeria is never going to be the first.
And Nigeria is not going to be the first place it will happen. So it is better, I was saying last week that at the height of the Boko Haram insurgency, when the Bureau of Statistics data was showing that in Yobe State, 83% of all males had not had access to education, and that in Borno State it was 63%, and the unemployment was corresponding with that. If those issues had been dealt with historically, Boko Haram may have come into existence as a group, but they would not have had an army. Maybe they would have been 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 or 50, but they wouldn't have had the terrain in which to operate as they are operating now. So we mustn't forget that the most peaceful countries, the most prosperous countries, the first line of defense is education, job skills, capacity building, industrialization, and so forth. We talk about here often that there are countries where the prisons are so empty. The prisons are so empty.
They become tourist
that
sites.
The government has turned the prison into places of tourism where you come and pay $30 or $40 to experience.
To sleep over.
Yes, to see what the prison would have looked like if you are an arrested criminal. And these are prisons where there is a TV, menu, laundry, and a whole lot of things.
Right.
In fact, somebody was making a joke that young people traveling across Europe, when they get to those countries and they don't have money for hotel, they go for the prison experience because it is cheaper. They just pay $20 or $30. So that's what development does for you. That's what we should be aiming for.
Comrade Alex Omotainse joins us. Lagos traffic has shown you. We're just about heading out to the phone lines, but we'll take a quick comment from you. You're the Lagos State Chairman, Committee for the Defense of Human Rights. We've talked about how this Operation Positive Identification could erode human rights. Well, what do you have to say about it? The army has said, well, it's not as bad as you think. The idea is a good one. We want to fish out terrorists who are going to other places across the country. What's your opinion?
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for coming late, but as you can understand the situation of the state traffic, there's no two ways about it. What is wrong is wrong. The security operatives in Nigeria have failed in their responsibility. So the idea of coming with possible identification is just a means of continued harassment and intimidation of Nigerians, because by the time they start the operation, show your identification or what they're about, people will be arrested, people will be sent to prison. I'm glad I heard somebody talking about we have prisons in some country where it's empty.
Right.
This idea is idea of increasing our prison congestion, and also a lot of innocent people will suffer it, because at the end of the day, some of the military men will turn it to be a means of extortion. So there's no way we can allow this. This should not be allowed to take place. They know the area where they have security challenges. So to say, if we don't want to go back to history, there's no way we can do it. During the Gideon Oka coup in 1990, they mentioned some states in Nigeria that we should allow to go, that they will become problem to Nigeria. I don't want to mention names, but some of those states were those states today that were terrorizing the country. The military know where insurgency are. They knew where the kidnappers and the Boko Haram, whoever they are looking for as a criminal. They know where they are. That what they need to do is to intensify more effort, to put more other technology or what have you, effort to increase their way of surveillance. Right. Not by coming with the idea of intimidating Nigerians.
Indeed. Let's go on. Let's go to the phone lines right now because of time. We would like to take your thought via our phone lines and, of course, on our socials as well. Here are the numbers you can call.
Call us on 01-277-0993, 01-277-1993, 01-277-2993, and 01-277-3993. This is Nigeria Info. We are listening.
Yes, we are listening. Would ask you to please keep your comment as brief as possible. Let's start off with Facebook. Undu Johnson says the Nigerian army is doing what they earlier denied. The level of sincerity is at its lowest level. What do we believe? Valentine Ojo is watching from Port Harcourt. Thank you. As Vivian says, the president is fully aware there is more to this act than we know. Raphael Adegoke on Facebook says, Captain Blade, I greet you, sir. It's always a delight to listen to you speak from your wealth of knowledge. The Nigerian army should not be the ones to carry out this mission of positive identification because they will abuse it using excessive force. The only way the police will abuse its operation is taking bribe. Like we know. No, that's not just all it is. Alison is watching from Kingdom of Bonny Island, River State. Thanks for joining us. Amechi Paul Kevin says on Facebook, they are going to abuse the rights of innocent citizens. Michael Okugwe, if the Nigerian army do not have any credible means of confirming the authenticity of these IDs, then forget it. Go into the cyber and get yours in minutes. If this strategy isn't put in place, forget it. It's a joke. He's saying anybody can get ID. All right. Within minutes.
Let's have Oladipo calling from Orile join us on the program this morning. Hello, good morning.
Hello. Good morning, Sheriff.
Good morning.
Good morning, Wemimo.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Pastor Oladipo Ayemo.
Welcome to the show.
From Sarigam. Now, what is the job of the immigration? If the army they are coming out for identification, which of the identification are they asking for? Is it international passport voters, what kind of identification is this? This is misplacement of priority. Like the captain said, he is going to turn the army into something else. And you know how we abuse uniform in this country. Ordinarily, without asking whether there's any identification or not, if you see where armies are torturing people on the road, you'll not be able to stand. Only God will save this nation.
Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, let us take a message from Twitter from Joy Forever. Army said it was fake news. You can't even get true fact in our nation. If the army is looking for flee Boko Haram, they should... Oh, come on. No way. No, that's not right. No. I'm just not going to read that. That's absolutely not right. Okay, let's take this one from Ikechukwu Oyemike, who says, what is the Nigerian army doing about this since it has dissociated itself from it? The said operation seems to have started. Who sanctioned it and on whose order? Now, like this, we go to look. He has tagged a post from the Nigerian army there on Twitter. If we head over quickly to WhatsApp, we can take a few comments. This is from King Raf. It says, my concern is a leakage of vital information. How can the Nigerian army be planning to execute an operation in a particular period and before the time the whole world has already known what the operation is? The Nigerian army should investigate and fish out the person that leaked out the information. Ororo from Ayobo says the current government... Okay, summarize.
Let's speak with Ohi from Ajao. Ohi, good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning to Rotimi and the retired army officer.
Good morning.
Yeah. You see, this situation in this country concerning security has taken a different turn. Because if you look at it now, the military, the soldiers are taking over. And it's so strange that the police force is just looking. Is it because Buhari is a retired military person that is making military get so much influence? How can the army? We used to revere the army.
Even if he wasn't a retired military person, he's a commander-in-chief of the armed forces. The president is. Yes.
Why?
Whether civilian background or military background.
What's the police force there for now?
That's a question.
What's the immigration there for? What is immigration really doing in this country? And they receive salaries, they promote them. They do all for what now? For what job? It's so sad because right now, military is into politics. You know, all the civil situations that need the attention of the Nigerian police, the military has taken over. Look, they've brought down the police. They've reduced the police to nothing. It's so unfortunate.
Okay, thank you so much for reaching us. I'm not sure if the army reduced the police. I think it's just a systemic thing. Afen Dominic says, just to advise everyone to be careful on how we tread with these military officers and not forget. Okay, I'll skip that. And it says, how can the army identify who is terrorist or not? Reduce unemployment and it will combat all forms of defiance. Solomon from Akomo just says, I think we should be careful with the way we criticize every program and policy of the government. This might be a good idea. In summary, that's what he says here. Okay, no name. I'll take a final one. No name to your messages. We can't read them. No name. Okay, Tare says, Captain Blade, is always a delight listening to you. We have been saying that it is the security structure of the Chief of Army. I don't understand your message.
Vitalis joins us from Ejigo. Vitalis, good morning to you.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah. I'm calling from my 2%. Yeah. There's something I want to chip in. Let me come from a layman's angle.
Please make it happen in 30 seconds. Can you do that?
Oh, okay. What happens to our intelligence? Initially, even if such operation is going to take place, my sister, let me say something. Why can't they do it even without the uniform, the regular uniform, and go underground with intelligence to approach this issue?
The military cannot do that. The police can do that.
They have the intelligence department to do that. They have. Look, the tracking of Osama bin Laden and the tracking of the latest ISIS leader that was killed. Who got the information before it was done?
Good comment
what
there.
What is happening to our intelligence department?
That's a big question on the table. Thank you so much for joining us. On that note, we need to wrap up. We're really out of time. This conversation continues on our social media handles. We're on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM. The comments are going on Facebook. People are even replying one another. That's fantastic. Keep it going on. We'll have to thank very much retired Captain Aliyu Blade for joining the show today. Thanks, sir. Captain Blade?
Yes, there.
Thank you for joining us on the show.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Comrade Alex Omotense, you made it in. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
He's a Lagos State Chairman, Committee for the Defense of Human Rights. Thank you. Rotimi Sankore. Thank you. We thank Tosin Akinride, Yvonne Khafor, and Zainab Yakin, also Babatunde Abdusalami for all making the show possible today. We'll be back with more conversation tomorrow morning, but after the news, you'll be listening to Money, Business and Economy with Tunji Andrews. I'm on social media as Wemimo Sport. I'm Wemimo Adewuni. See you tomorrow.
And I am Sheriff Quadry. Good morning to you.